You can do this career. You can be a professional aviator. Even if you don't want to do it full time, you can find your place where you fit, and you should, because you only get one shot at life.
How many people go through life doing work they really don't like, but every day dreaming of, say, working in the aviation industry? They say it's too late. They think it would be too hard. They think it would go against conventional norms. If you never go after what you want, you'll never have it. This is Fly the Transition. Join us as we soar through the captivating stories of individuals embracing a thrilling journey into the aviation industry. From pilots spreading their wings to mechanics fine-tuning the engines and a myriad of industry professionals, each with a unique tale to tell. Get ready to dive into the diverse backgrounds, the pivotal moments that propelled their leap, and the sheer determination that transformed their aspirations into reality. We're not just about dreams. We're about making them take flight. Welcome to Fly the Transition. And now your host, Jim Schilling.
Greetings out there, all my aviation friends. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Fly the Transition. We're going to do something a little bit different tonight, where we're going to focus a bit more on what you can do to make the transition happen for you. This episode, I'm going to be excited to welcome Nik Fialka. He is the host of Ready for Pushback, which is another aviation podcast. Nik is also a captain with the major airlines, as well as a coach consultant with the interview coaching company Spitfire Elite. Before we get going with all that, though, I want to reach into the old mailbag and say thank you to some folks for the support and kind words that you left, both in my inbox and through Discord. Colin writes, as a 40-year-old eyeing a transition myself, I love the work that you're doing. Colin also joined our Discord community, so welcome, Colin. Glad to have you. And for some feedback from last week's episode, From Behind the Lens to Above the Clouds, with former Hollywood camera operator Eric Fletcher. He worked on both Dexter, True Bloods, and a variety of other programs. This comment is from the one and only Badger pilot. He says, this one was just flat out entertaining to listen to. I wish you recorded the extra hours of talking you did afterwards that I've been hearing so much about. This episode had quite a bit of back and forth exchange, as Eric is a member of the Discord community, so people were able to ask him questions directly, and he was able to engage and interact, and I think that is one of the really cool things about this community. So there are some future guests coming up who are also members of the community, so if you are not a part of that, go ahead and shoot me an email, flythetransition@gmail.com. I will get you added to the community, and you can join that conversation. I had another really cool opportunity pop up in the last week where I was featured on the podcast Behind the Prop with Bobby and Wally. It was really cool to come on that podcast and talk about my aviation and podcasting adventures. So if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and hop over to their podcast, which is Behind the Prop. My episode was published just last Monday on January 22nd. So I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for having me on, guys. Those of you listeners out there who haven't checked those guys out before, they're a good time, so go ahead and check out their podcast as well. So with all that out of the way, let's talk about this week's episode. I mentioned in the intro wanted to do something a little bit different this time around. I figured with all of the conversations we've had, hearing people's transitions and their success stories, I want to throw in some things every once in a while of what you can do to make these things happen. Yeah, it's cool to hear the stories of where people have come from, how they transition into aviation, but it's going to leave some people asking, what is next? So that's where people like Nik are going to come in periodically throughout the podcast run. Nik, as I mentioned, is a consultant with Spitfire Elite. He's got a lot of really great advice for people on his podcast. Again, Ready for Pushback. If you haven't checked that out, you really should, because he has a lot of information to offer. And not only that, he talks to a lot of industry professionals who are able to give some insight into hiring processes, things like that. So rather than me talk more about this, let's jump into the interview with Nik and hear what he's got to say. And we get to hear about the transitions in aviation that Nik has made along the way as well. All right. Well, Nik, welcome to the Fly the Transition podcast. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you come and join me.
Hey, Jim, it is great to be here. I'm so stoked. We've been, what's it been, like a month of us trying to get on each other's schedule?
Yeah. I'm really glad this worked out. And as we talked about before we started recording, like I think that you're going to have some great perspective to bring we talk about stories, and we've been recording all these interviews and getting stories, but what do you do with that information now? Like, people are, maybe the bug has bitten. So looking at some of those resources that are out there, I think is important too. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, man, this is going to be great. And we'll kind of peel that onion. We'll go as deep as you want to go for your listener, because I know he or she has a lot of things swirling in their head as they're hearing your interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get down to that part, let's talk about your background in aviation. Where does it start for you?
All right. So I grew up in the mountains in North Carolina, in the middle of nowhere, and it's mapped out of a town. And when I was, when did I get my first flight? I want to say I was 14 years old. There's one rich guy in town, and he had a Pitts Special, which is a hot little biplane. And having never been in a plane ever, he told my dad to bring me to the airport, and we'd make the drive. And he took me up for like 10 minutes, and I threw up, and it was amazing.
I love that you say it was amazing, even after you say, I threw up and it was amazing.
Yes. You got to push through, y'all. Like, you're throwing up, you just got to keep going. It's like, nobody likes a quitter. So I went to a military college in South Carolina and graduated, and I graduated there with a Navy scholarship. And, we were relatively poor growing up, and I had to get some way to get me through school. And so the Navy decided to pay for it. You had to choose something to do. And I really don't like boats. I don't even like going on a dock to fish. And so I chose aviation, and I didn't realize it at the time that I was really, really lucky to get it. But a couple people in my group that graduated with me, we got aviation slots, and I rolled through Pensacola, Florida. Got into training in the mighty T-34, which is an airplane we used to have. Mm-hmm. And I just rolled through. It was great. I ended up in helicopters. I flew H-60s, and the H-60 is the Black Hawk. In the Navy, we call it the Seahawk. I became a T-34 flight instructor. Back after my first tour, I went back to teach the kids how to fly, which is super duper fun. And I was in the mighty VT-6 shooters, which is probably my favorite squadron I've ever been in. And then rolled out to fly H-53s, which are bigger helicopters. So I went from one helicopter to a fixed wing plane to another helicopter, and that's where I spent my life. And for anybody that has ever flown a helicopter and looked to go to the airlines, from there you have a really long road to go, because it's not easy to go from the helicopter world to the fixed wing world in professional aviation. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of my journey, and it's mostly military.
So how long were you in the military then?
Man, well, by the time this podcast airs, I will be retired, and we are interviewing in December of 2023. I know we're going to be launched out in 2024, and on January 1st, 2024, I will have retired from the Navy. I want to say it's like 22 and a half-ish years.
Oh, wow.
I graduated in 2001, and it was awesome. I did the active duty side. I did the reserve side. I've been a consultant for the government. I've done this and that. So any way that a military person can like make a bad decision, I've made all of them.
Sure. Well, congratulations on your pending retirement, or as this airs, your retirement.
That's right. I'll officially be old. You should see how big my forehead gets. Like, it's just like less and less hair every day.
I hear you. Off topic, just for funsies, and not in the podcast probably, but I did 4 years in the Air Force before I got out and found civilian law enforcement. So,
dude, you should definitely keep this in the podcast, man. You were 4 years in the Air Force?
Yeah.
What'd you do in the Air Force?
So I was security forces at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, Nevada, where they've got the red flag exercises. And if that's not a way to get your interest in aviation, just amped up, I don't know what it is, then you see just about every aircraft in the Air Force inventory. The Thunderbirds are stationed there, and it was so awesome.
Yeah, Nellis is a really great place, and especially if you are not participating in red flag and just having to do all the briefs and everything. If you're just watching and you're like, this seems cool, and all those guys are all ragged out because they're exhausted from all the briefing and the prep and the G's and everything else. Yeah.
And we see that as they're getting out of their planes, they're getting ready to go. Like we talked to them a little bit, and then they were pretty beat up. But I mean, especially for us watching night launches, it was awesome.
Oh yeah, a night launch is so fun to see, man. You got all the burners on blast. It just looks great. Yeah, I love that.
I had a good time there. Yeah, it was great.
It's a little different for me. I spent my life on aircraft carriers, so it was those burners were just like right next to your face as they were going.
Oh, that's not as cool.
Yeah,
like for me, they're like across the flight line. I don't have to deal with burners from that perspective.
That's right. Everything's a lot more greasy when you're on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. If you've never been on one, it's just caked in grease. It's unbelievably slippery, and even the planes will slide around if you get enough movement on the boat. It's pretty crazy.
So you've done some airline flying too, right?
Yeah,
you're with a major carrier. You captain with them?
Yeah, I am, which is crazy. So, when I left active duty in 2009, I got a job in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, selling toilet paper and copy paper. I was basically working for Dunder Mifflin. That was what my life was like. And
I was just gonna say that.
I really loved it. The people I was with were awesome, but I was making no money whatsoever. And so I got a job. I got a couple years later, I got a job at the Pentagon and writing the budget for the Navy, which was super duper cool, but exhausting. After doing that, I opened an RV park in Florida. So I just kind of did a bunch of different stuff, trying to find where I fit and trying to, I had this entrepreneurial bug. I like to help people. I love service. And that RV park I thought was going to be the thing, right? My big retirement thing. And I was going to have made it, because in the military, if you stay 20 years in the military, you get a retirement check, right?
Yeah.
And you get that on day one, which is really fun and really cool. But in my mind, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving 10 years in and going to stay in the reserves, but I've got this 10-year gap that I've got to cover, and I've got to make up the money that my peers will be getting in retirement. So that was my goal. And it was great. I was making a lot of money. I was doing really, really well. It was the highest rated RV park in Florida when I sold it. But I was working.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I was working super hard. And I've got 5 kids. So my wife, she was exhausted with it because it was such a drain on her and such a drag that we had to find something different. We had to find something to make a change. And that was, 2017 ish.
Okay.
And that's when people were talking about this pilot shortage idea, and the idea that people can get hired that typically could not. When I left active duty in 2009, the only company hiring was Southwest. To get hired with Southwest, you had to have 3,000 multi-engine fixed wing hours, and you had to have a 737 type rating. I had, I'm a helicopter guy. Like I'm lucky I can count to 10. And so the world had started to open up, and the regionals were paying $35 an hour, which was amazing. Like, it's a huge bump. It was like more than double what they were paying. And so my wife and I kind of took a look at it, like, hey, look, we could go do this for a year or two, and then I could get on with a major airline, and we could sell the park, and I could have 17 days off a month. That sounds amazing. Let's go. And life is funny, so we sold the park and we made the jump, and it was terrifying. I was making, $1,500 every 2 weeks trying to support 7 people. And it was, it was a tightrope walk. And God bless Anna, my wife. She's the one that holds it all together. And we did that. I thought a year and a half, we'll get out of here. And after about the first year there, I got a call from the Navy saying, hey, you're going to Africa for a year. And boy, that really put the brakes on things.
I bet it did.
Boy, I would talk about not being a happy camper. That was me. We did it though. We went and I deployed for a year. I think baby number 4 was born then while I was deployed. And then I came home at the end of 2019 and things were going to be awesome because I was going to get on with a major airline immediately because I knew I was. And so I went back to my regional, started flying, and got done with upgrade or with back in the saddle training, right, as a first officer, right about February of 2020. And I thought things were going awesome. And then March of 2020, I don't know if anybody's paying attention, March of 2020, I got stuck for a year and a half at the regional again. But you know what? That's when my mind changed. And that's when everything clicked, because I realized everything is what you make of it, and you have to grow where you're planted. And I started to just kind of rejoice in that and to really dive into that and be with I volunteered for the union. I got involved with everything, and I really just invested in the people I was with, and it made my life better. And it stopped being about just this stupid money thing that I was chasing. It started being about the people and the life. And that's where I am today, is like celebrating the people that I get to fly with. Like the guy I just flew with the other day, you know, his thing is he makes apps for phones. It was like super cool to see. And, you know, we're great buddies. And so, I'm a captain in a major airline. It's amazing. I fly a really big airplane and I can't believe it. And they pay me to do it. I do have those 17 days off, but I work mostly weekends because I'm junior.
Okay.
But, you know, that's me.
I think the interesting thing with this is I brought you on to have some perspective with, you know, what are some resources that are out there if you're interested in getting into aviation as a second career. But you yourself also have a transition story that we're able to share as well. So I appreciate that insight too of, you know, you got out of the Navy, you had some other opportunities that you tried out, and you still found your way back into commercial aviation. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I never thought I wanted to be a pilot. I don't really like live to fly. I've never gone out and rented a plane or any of that. I've never done any of that. But I have fallen more in love with it the older I get. It's very interesting. Never thought that would be me.
That kind of describes my midlife at this point.
Yeah. But I think your listener too, your listener is hearing these stories. They've got the snapshots of the people that you're interviewing that have had a process, right? And everybody's at the point that is, everybody's listening, you know, except for your mom. The people that are listening are probably looking to try to make a change and trying to sort out, where's the roadmap? What do I do? How do I go about it? And there are multiple, or how do I afford this? That's a big one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they're 20, maybe they're 50. And it's different. Your life, or you're 35 and you're right in the middle of the kids, right? Mm-hmm. What are the things? Maybe you're single, maybe you're married, maybe you're divorced, maybe you're a widow, like all sorts of different things. And that's what I love about your show, is it gives people perspective. And that's so important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for that. You also provided me a really awesome segue into a little company I've heard of called Spitfire Elite that you might be associated with.
Yeah.
Okay, you totally are. You work for Spitfire. Do you work for them, or you consult with them, or how does that work?
It's deeper than that. They're just two of my best buddies run this company, and they let me participate in their little piece of heaven, and it's great. So Spitfire started off as an interview consulting business, interview prep, right? The idea of helping people get an airline job. And we started initially to help minorities, women, underrepresented, and people of English as a second language. And that was, the ones that were looked past. That was how we started. And the thought was, if we can help people that traditionally have been disadvantaged to get to the airlines, if we can help them, then we can help anybody no matter what. And that is what we do. We prepare them. We do application review. We do our services we do interview prep. But it's bigger than that, because it's a really cool community that we interact with. And once you're with us, you are part of us, and you're always part of us. And the people involved, the people that have come through as clients, they look to give back to the next generation that are coming through. And it's all lifting as you climb. And that's the fun part of what our company is. And so the focus is making sure that if you are going to get a job, no matter what the job is, that we can help you understand who you are. It doesn't matter what question you're asked. 0% of the question matters. What matters is who you are and why you are. And if we can help you understand that with some self-discovery and some introspection, and we help you dive deeper, first off, you're a better person for it. You're a better spouse. You're a better pilot. You're a better communicator, and you're a better interviewer. And so, yes, there are tell me about a time questions, and there are what would you do questions, but really the depth of why you are and why you do what you do. Those are the things that resonate and make the people interviewing you know that you belong at that organization. And so that's what we do. Just a little of this, a little of that, and we shake it up and spit you out, and you're awesome.
So how long have you guys been doing this?
Wow. How long? We started right, I want to say right after right during COVID. I think I think that's when everything kind of got going. There was still some hiring going on here and there, and they got they kicked it off. And I'll tell you what, 2020, the end of 2021 and 2022 and 2023, like things just started exploding. I mean, we've got thousands of pilots every single year that just come through and participate, and it's just so much fun. It's great.
So from how you're describing it, it doesn't sound like it's, you've got one cookie cutter operation here. It's probably unique to the individual. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say so. The people that come to us are the good part about our company is it's you become a member. It's one-time cost, and you're a member for life. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are on your journey. It just matters that you get involved. Yeah, and so people come to us usually when they're thinking about a 135 carrier or a regional airline, or they're in that middle that post CFI step right now, and building their hours, or they are ready for their mainline interview to interview at American or Delta or United, or when FedEx and UPS are hiring, would love for them to start hiring again, with all that, the Spirits, the Frontiers, the Mesas, the SkyWests, you name it, the FlexJets, the NetJets. And so they come and they participate, and there's a lot of academics ahead of time, right? We treat this like professional sports. And the Tron, one of our founders, worked with professional athletes for most of his life, and so this is a really cool idea. Like you get into the film room first, and you do the academics, and you learn the basis, and once you have those concepts in hand, then you start climbing the mountain, and then you participate. We have daily Zooms with an instructor who is asking questions to participants, and they're live answering questions. They're getting live feedback from different instructors. We've got AI portals that help you practice on your own, that videotape you so you can watch yourself and see your ums and see your verbal clutter and look at your eye contact and whether it's good or whether it's not, whether you're smiling, whether you forget to smile, what the content of your story is like. And so that's another portion of it. And then at the final mountaintop is you do a one-on-one interview session right before your interview with one of our coaches, guy like me or Pete or Yaron, or we got dozens of awesome coaches, and you'll sit down hour and a half and just crank out lots of answers, just like you're in the interview, and just get you ready. And that's right before the Super Bowl, man. The biggest practice of the year. And that's what we do. And once you're through it and you're successful, you just reach back and you help others and you help them understand. I mean, my WhatsApp chat while we are interviewing, I've probably had 30 messages on my WhatsApp from
Wow.
just chiming in. And it's the end of the year where there are very few people doing interviews right now, but the season's coming back up. Season starts in like February and it really goes crazy until the end of October. And that's where we are. And 2024 is going to be a really interesting year for aviation. So we'll see how that is.
You talk a bit about the community that you have as well. So can you tell me a bit more about that? I mean, we're talking about, that you got your WhatsApp that you guys are conversing in, but it sounds like this goes beyond just the coaching and the initial training. Like you have a true community behind you as well.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of living in a technological age where it just is, we're able to be present to one another. It's very fun to do. The first part of that is, yes, getting involved with our chat groups to talk about whether you have a specific question about an interview, or you have a question about maybe what should I wear, or even like, hey, does anybody have a good recommendation for a bag or whatever, or hey,
Sure.
my kids are sick and I'm trying to figure this out while I'm on the road. Can somebody help me out? Boom. And yes, the answer is always yes. Like everybody steps up to the plate. And so that's where we start. Another thing that we love to do is support other organizations that support pilots. So we go to all the major hiring conferences of the year. We go to the National Gay Pilot Association. We go to Women in Aviation, Professional Asian Pilot Association, Latino Pilots Association, Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, Rotary to Air Group. The list goes on and on. Guys, if you're listening to this and I forgot your organization, I'm so sorry. I love you. I do. But we go to all of them. We'll get a big booth, and then we'll put the call out to say, hey, if you're living close to this city, if you're going to come participate, come volunteer, come help this organization out. And we try to lift those organizations up with our massive call to action for the people that participate with Spitfire, because it's bigger than us, right? It's not some money grab. It's really just trying to help out aviation. And so we'll go and we'll bring 300-400 pilots to a place, and they'll just, some of them are looking for jobs. Some of them already have jobs, but everybody's looking to help. And it's just so much fun. You'll just see the people in the Spitfire shirts or the, like doing all the volunteering and stuff. It's a really cool thing because everybody just kind of gets it, and that's the cool part about our business, is that aviation is something that shouldn't be able to happen, and being able to participate in it. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah.
And so that's it, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, that community part is really cool. I'm really glad you shared that, because I think that's probably a special part of your company. Like you said, it's not a money grab. It's about the community and people helping each other out, and that is really awesome to hear. So
yeah, we give back more than any other organization to try to lift up and help all of the other organizations. And one of those is the podcast, right? So I have a show. It's called Ready for Pushback, and
yes, you do.
Yeah. And I love, I started that. Let me tell you how it started. I was on the phone. I called Tron and I was complaining. And I told him, I was like, dude, like, you need a podcast. Like, all the other aviation podcasts about pilot hiring are the worst. And I said, there's such an opportunity here. And he's like, yeah. And he hangs up the phone and he calls me back and he's like, oh, you're doing the podcast. So I was like, what? No, you were voluntold. Yeah, I was just literally voluntold. And he sent me all the equipment and was like, go start your podcast. And we did. And it's been unbelievable. And that is really, when we talk about a roadmap, right, that's the idea for my show, is to be able to give back to the pilot community to help them understand what it is they're going to experience. And
yeah,
when I interview the director of hiring at United or American or Delta, or a CEO, when I interviewed David Neeleman, the CEO, the founder of Breeze, or whoever it is. I dive deep to take away the veil that has been on the aviation world for so long. I want people to know, top to bottom, left to right, what to expect. And whether we're talking about money or we're talking about the requirements to get in, or the quality of the candidates that are showing up, or how not to answer a question foolishly, or what to prepare with, or what to bring, or, you know, it could be a million things. And that's what we do. And that's what this show's all about. And I mean, it's unreal how crazy. I mean, we've had hundreds of thousands of people listening to the show, and it's been awesome.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I like about your podcast too, that you do kind of lift that veil, so to speak. There's so many people out there that think they've got the answers, and they like your intro says to your podcast, you've got all these people in internet forums and YouTube channels and this and that are, you know, pontificating and giving their sage advice that's sometimes just nonsense.
Dude, everybody's got a hot take. Oh my God. You could die on the internet with hot takes, man. Like, just...
That's the last segment of my other podcast, actually. What's your unpopular aviation opinion? We ask for hot takes. And
that's it. That is it.
Controversy.
Give me a break, man. Stay off the forums, y'all. Get off the forums. They're gross. Just get off.
Yeah. But just to hear you talk about that, you know, that's part of your vision for this podcast, is to lift that veil. I think it definitely shines through in your episodes, especially like you're talking about interviewing hiring managers. But I think that another aspect that you didn't mention that I'll bring up for you is you've got some solo episodes too, where you're just giving some feedback based on your experiences, what you've learned from people in other interviews and things like that. And I think that's just as valuable, getting that perspective, as it is interviewing a hiring manager.
Yeah, you know, the solo, I put out 2 shows a week, and one is an interview, whether it's going to be a person that is a leader in the industry, or maybe a person that's participating in the industry. Maybe it's a pilot. Maybe I'm doing some coaching. You know, I even do a bunch of anonymous stuff with pilots that have hard questions that don't want their name out there, and I do a bunch of that. And I love it. But the solo shows, I have like I'm a little special iPhone here, and I've got this notes app, and I've just seriously got hundreds and hundreds of ideas.
Oh, look at that. I don't think my audience can, but I can. That's impressive.
It's this massive list of ideas for solo shows. And if anybody's got an idea, email me, podcast@spitfireelite.com. I would certainly love that. But for instance, I got an email. Let me dig it up. I got an email yesterday from one of the directors of hiring at one of the major airlines. And he says, I want you to do an episode about transparency. We have a record number of applicants adjusting their check ride failure answers once they get invited to the interview, meaning that, you know, like, do you have any check ride failures? And they're like, no. And then they get an invite and they're like, yes. And that, let me tell you, man, that is dishonest as hell. And he wants me to do, you know, the good part about this industry is those people that run it want people to be successful. And they have a target of people they're trying to hire. And they really, really, really want people to succeed. And that's when they come to me and they're like, hey man, put this out because this is so important. I love that. It's great. It's a good part of our community.
Yeah. To have them get involved with that and offer that feedback, I think is really valuable too. But I mean, I think it's just like probably anything. If you put it out there and you're just open about it and you're able to talk about it, you can maybe work with that. But if you hide it, you're doomed.
Yeah. I had a guy who had a major airline interview who I worked with him personally. And he was English as a second language. He was a really cool guy, and he got turned away. And I was very, very surprised that he got turned away. And it turned out that on his application, he put that he had a 3.0 GPA in college when he really had a 2.1. And man, let me tell you,
they're going to find that out.
Yeah, you have to bring your transcripts with you.
Yeah.
But if you have an error on your app, like that's a big part of what we do with application review is making sure people are open kimono about stuff. It's better to be honest and forthcoming about something than it is to try to hide it. And I cannot tell you how hard it is to talk about something uncomfortable. want to talk about a failure. You want to talk about not being good at something. You want to talk, nobody likes to stand there naked, and that's what it feels like. And so it's tough.
There is still plenty more to come from my interview with Nik Fialka, but before we do that, a quick word from those who make the Fly the Transition podcast possible. Aviation friends, are you looking for eyewear that's as adventurous as you are? Look no further than Flying Eyes Optics. Their ultralight, comfortable, and durable glasses and sunglasses are perfect for pilots. They are designed by pilots, for pilots, and for my money, they're the best aviation eyewear that I have ever had. If you or that special pilot in your life are interested in Flying Eyes, check out our affiliate link down in the show notes and use code FlyingMidwest10 and you can get 10% off your next purchase at Flying Eyes. Aviation enthusiasts, have you heard about my friends over at Pilot Quarters? This pilot-owned family business is crafting your next favorite flying shirt. Their chart-inspired merchandise comes in camp shirts, polo shirts, and more. And by popular demand, they're adding lightweight fleece hoodies and long-sleeve tees to their collection. So head on over to pilotquarters.com today and soar in style.
You're listening to Fly the Transition. If you've ever thought about changing careers and getting into the aviation industry, welcome to your new home. Now, back to your host, Jim Schilling.
In doing the podcast, what do you think is one of the biggest takeaways that you've had personally or that you think would be worth sharing with others?
My biggest takeaway, it's tricky. So many interesting parts of this show. The community that I get to experience now, where I can't walk through an airport without somebody saying, "Hey, Nick, it's nice to meet you," and telling me something like that. I love that. I was 4:00 in the morning in Orlando waiting on the van to pick me up, and a guy walks around the corner and he's like, "Hey, are you Nik Fialka?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I owe this job to you. Thank you so much." And I'd never met the guy.
That is awesome.
It was beautiful. It was so nice. And I don't feel special. I do. That makes me feel very special. But I feel like, who am I, right? I think my show is just giving a voice to the pilot where there never has been before. And it gives you an opportunity to get past the stupid hot takes on the forum and those, because I live and breathe this industry. I talk to people all over this industry and dive deep and try to find, you and I have totally different backgrounds, but this aviation world brings us together. And I try to be, I don't try to be like the authority about it, but I try to know what's going on and see what's coming. And that's so hard to do. And so this show has done a lot. And you know what? Sometime the music's going to stop and people are going to stop hiring again. And it's going to be hard. And the competition's going to spike. And where are we? And what are we going to do? And how are you going to separate yourself to get that opportunity? Because right now there's a bunch of seats at the table, but when the music stops and they pull away all the chairs, and there's one left, how do you get that seat? And that's what you've got to figure out.
So in working with Spitfire Elite, as you're dealing with clients, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see coming forward?
With the clients and as they participate? Yeah. So I'll tell you, it's changed throughout the years, and there are a couple buckets of clients, right? You've got a military bucket, you've got a civilian bucket, you've got people from another country, like an immigrant bucket, and so maybe there's a few more that I'm forgetting, but each one has their challenges, and so the first challenge I think is for all of them together to feel like, oh, they should be they're due this favor. That hey, this is mine. Why would I not have it? I'm due this, and that for sure. Get that out of my face, man. I've been talking to more and more people that just have, hey, I've got 1,500 hours. Why can't I get Delta to call me? Why can't I get United to call me? I'm like, dude, 1,500 hours? Welcome to aviation, man. You're brand new. But the idea has changed over the past 10 months or so that, gosh, 1,500 hour people are getting a shot, getting looked at. and you do nothing. You absolutely do nothing, but you better put out if you want to get this job. Like, you better work hard. And that's what I mean by put out, is like, you got to do the reps. And I would say my military people, the learning how to not talk military and how not to be robotic, right? You know, you're Air Force guy. Like,
yeah, that's actually a problem I had when I started trying to get jobs after I got out of the military. They're like, we want some personality. You're too stuffy. Quit calling me sir. I'm like, well, that's just, it's been ingrained in you for, that many years. I'm just trying to be respectful. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Also, my kids have to do 10 push-ups if they don't say sir when I call their name. So that's rigidity. But
I'm going to put that into practice at my house, I think.
Oh, it's so good. I'll tell you what, I'll say, excuse me, and they'll drop. They know. They don't even ask. They just drop. And they're good at push-ups, man. My kids can knock out some push-ups. It's amazing to see their little strong bodies.
My 16-year-old could do some push-ups. He could stand to do a couple.
That's really I would say my civilian people that are younger, the ability to communicate and seem authentic and not bubblegum sugarcoat kind of, Instagram, social media-esque, that ability to communicate, because the people across the table from you at an airline interview, they're probably minimum 40 years old. Maybe they're minimum 35 years old, but you're not going to have a 20-year-old interviewing you unless it's an HR rep. They usually don't put interns in there, but usually the HR reps have been doing this for a long, long time, and they're not in their 20s. Some are, but most are not. And so that's not a hit on them. It's just, you have to be able to communicate effectively to somebody in authority, and that is tricky. My immigrants, my people from other countries, my dad's an immigrant, right? So I have a big heart for that. And
sure.
Especially if English is your second language, being able to communicate clearly who you are, and because you're a really good pilot and you've done a lot of great things and you probably have tons of hours and you've probably done crazy stuff that like none of us have ever heard, and being able to articulate that into an effective, impactful manner, that is really hard to do. You could pick any country. I couldn't even go to Canada and interview properly with an English, like with my English. I just can't imagine the hill that somebody English as a second language has to climb to do this kind of thing. So hats off to them. They're amazing.
So on the topic of challenges, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges facing the industry moving into the next year?
Next year's tough. 2024 is tough. You've got the JetBlue Spirit merger, which may or may not pan out. You've got the potential failure of JetBlue if that doesn't pan out. You've got the merger of Hawaiian and Alaska. You've got the Pratt & Whitney issue that's really affecting Spirit and slightly affecting Frontier. And I don't think anything's affecting Breeze with that. But there are, if you're flying a 320 with a Neo engine with a Pratt & Whitney GTF engine, your plane's on the block for a couple months at least. And so there's what I'm alluding to here is there's constriction happening there. There are people that are flying for organizations that are looking at like, ooh, maybe it's not a great idea for me to hang my hat up at this company forever. Sure. Maybe I should jump ship. And so if they decide that, you've got guys and gals that have really high hours, that are really competitive, that are going to be entering this market that is not super competitive right now. And you have companies, relaxing. The hot hiring of last year, I think, will be less this year in 2024. Okay. And I think the competition will increase. And so you have to be even more ready and even more aggressive and network even harder. Listen to my show. I talk all about every single one of them and how to do it. And you have to be able to hustle. And if you are a person that's just sitting back thinking you're due because you've been reading all the hot takes on the old internets, this is not going to be the year for you. All it takes is, it's election year coming up. Like, who knows? There's a slowing in domestic travel. Fourth quarter results haven't posted yet. But you just see a little bit of a cooling off in the economy. It just depends, guys. And so you've got to be ready, and you've got to start hustling, and you've got to put yourself in that position. If you're close with your hours, get your ass in the air. Stop listening to this podcast. Get in the air. Seriously, you've already,
for sure.
You need to get flying, and you need to knock it out. You need to get your apps in, and they need to be perfect. You need to get yourself networked. You need to get a suit that's legit. You need to shave your face. You need to wear deodorant. You need to shine your shoes, and brush your teeth. And come hydrated, because if you talk too long, your mouth gets dry. And
yes, it does.
Yeah, it does. And so all these things, you don't think about the little things. You didn't think about the fact that you shouldn't have an Altoid. Maybe you should just have one of those little Listerine tabs that dissolve in your mouth real quick. Yeah, that's what you want. Don't bring gum. You do need a resume, but you don't need an objective statement at the top, because everybody knows you're a pilot and you want to be a pilot. So what are the little things that you can do to make yourself better? Those incremental gains that you can get to put yourself ahead. And that, I mean, welcome to what I think about this. My mind spins all night long while I'm about all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's why you have so many notes on your phones about episode ideas. There it is.
That's it. And it'll get more and more for sure.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought up networking too, because on one of the last podcast episodes of yours that I listened to, you talk about that I think you think like, hey, stop listening to my podcast. I mean, thanks for listening to my podcast, but take your earbuds out, go talk to people. And it's amazing the interviews that I've done so far and how important networking has been featured within those episodes. That there's a lot of times, unfortunately, you got to get yourself out there.
You do, and you need to be human about it. You can't be transactional. And that's what I see is this transactional nature. When I lived in DC, it was all what you can do for me. How can I advance myself? And I see that in aviation with people being transactional. They'll have listened to some of my shows, and then they'll go to a hiring conference and they'll see a person that they've heard interviewed on my show, and they'll go try to grab a job from them or whatever. And instead, you need to be relationship building. You need to find out and slow roll it. And I look, it's like dating. It really is like dating. And I wasn't good at it. My wife will tell you I'm still not. And so I think your network, your ability to reach out to those people that can help you. I still talk my mentor. Shoot, man. I've had the same mentor since I was 16 years old. I'm 45 right now.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. I talk to him every week, and he's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so I hope that the listener has a good mentor. I hope that you are able to find those people in your life that matter to you more than just the job, that matter to you about what's going on with them and their family, and how can you help them succeed, and then you will be lifted up too. And so that's how it works.
If you had some advice that you would give to people looking to make a career change, what would that be? I would say
if you're trying to do this for the money, it's never enough. It's never enough money. Doesn't matter if you're a 777 captain at FedEx, 16, 20 years in. It's, the money's not going to, it's the stuff that doesn't matter. But if you want to do this because you love doing it, and your family is such that they support that, then do it. This is a great career. You can do this career. You can be a professional aviator. Even if you don't want to do it full time, you can find your place where you fit, and you should, because you only get one shot at life. And when you are taking that last breath, you're not thinking about that money that you had in your pocket. You're not thinking about whatever. You're thinking about that time that you had with your family, and the love and the excitement that you got to have in the things that you do. And that's what I get out of aviation, is that it's bigger than me, and it's this environment where I can be successful, and I can give and receive love on all the different levels, whether it's in the pilot hiring world, or in like sitting with a first officer, or relating with a flight attendant, or talking to a gate agent who's crying, who's had a really bad day, and just being with them and offering them who you are. And if that's interesting, man, this is a great job. If you think it's stupid, hey man, got it. Back to the salt mines. I mean, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, right. Well, that is a fantastic answer. I really appreciate that. Anything else you want to cover that we haven't talked about that might be important to share?
I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your shows, and I appreciate your desire. We talked ahead of time about diving into professional aviation, and you love aviation, but they don't pay you to fly. And I love that. I love that. And there's so much opportunity to just fit where you fit and grow where you were planted. And that is a really cool thing. Maybe you can make the switch, maybe you can't make the switch, but find some way to feel the excitement. Go to Sun and Fun, go to Oshkosh, go to something, go to the local air show, go see the Blue Angels, tell them I said hi, like do that. And it's quick. It goes quick. Yeah, guys, it's just a great job. So keep your nose sniffing around aviation because it's awesome. And I'm glad you're listening to this show. And I'm glad you're hearing the things that Jim's saying because it's so important. And he brings so many great people to give great perspective. So thank you for letting me be here. And thank you for what you do for our community, Jim.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words too. And I was going to say much of the same things. I appreciate what you do for the aviation community. And you've got a great podcast. And if people want to check that out, I think we should talk about that quick. Ready for Pushback. You're on all the major platforms.
Yeah, man. All of them. All the things. I got all the things.
All the things.
Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on the Book of Faces, Instagram, whatever, man. It just Ready for Pushback, and it's the number 4. And share it with somebody. Tell them they should listen to it.
Absolutely.
Take their phone and push the follow button and do it on your mom's phone when she's not paying attention.
Yeah, there you go. And you get to hear a great intro. Your kid does a great intro on that show. I love hearing that every time I play it. So
yeah, that's my 8-year-old Kate, and she listen. I love that little girl, and I love that she does this intro, and she loves that she's like, "Oh, I'm the famous kid in aviation." I'm like, "Babe, yeah, you're not the most famous kid in aviation, but everybody does hear your voice, and you're so sweet." And I'm thankful to have her and the other 4 as well.
Yeah, that is so cool. Well, Nik, thanks again for coming on, and best of luck to you with not just your aviation career, but all the things you guys do with Spitfire.
Jim, thanks, man. I appreciate everything you do, and keep crushing.
Well, that was such a fun episode to record with Nik. Thank you so much, Nik, for being a part of the Fly the Transition podcast, and not only sharing a bit about your transition in aviation, but also all of your own insight, experiences, and things you've learned through working in the airlines, as well as your consulting work with Spitfire Elite. For those of you who didn't check out my solo episode, I do mention that Nik gave me some insight that really opened my eyes as well, that even though I may not be destined for the airlines, the theory of grow where you're planted really stuck out with me, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm able to take these stories and share them with others to hopefully inspire others, and that's just where I fit right now in aviation, and that's just great for me. So thanks, Nik, for that little reminder. I do appreciate that too. And that should be a reminder for everyone. Just because you're not destined for the flight deck doesn't mean you can't still contribute in aviation. If you have not checked it out, Ready for Pushback can be found on all the major podcasting outlets. So check him out. Nik has got a great show. I promise you will not be disappointed. So on our next episode, we're going to talk to Jody Brandt. He is currently an airline captain, but his journey begins as a Navy corpsman, and he moved his way into naval aviation before moving to the airlines. So we'll hear a couple transitions in that story, so stay tuned for that coming out next week. Do you have a great transition story to share? I would love the opportunity to tell your story and help inspire others as they chase their career dreams as well. You can reach out to me to be a guest at flythetransition@gmail.com or on any of my social medias. I am on Instagram, Facebook. All of those links are down in the show notes, or you can reach me at the website flymidwest.com. And last but certainly not least, if you are looking for a way to support the Fly the Transition podcast and you want to show up to your next aviation event wearing the latest and greatest in merchandise from Fly the Transition, head on over to the website flymidwest.com/merch. There's all kinds of apparel such as t-shirts, sweatshirts, and more featuring the stunning Fly the Transition logo. All the advertising, merch sales, all that stuff goes right back into podcasting, so this isn't any kind of money grab or anything like that. Certainly not getting rich. Just want to share the world of aviation with others. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Fly the Transition, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to Fly the Transition. Life is too short for you not to do what you love. And our passion is to give you all the tools you need to make the transition from doing what you do to being in the aviation industry. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, you can reach out by email at flythetransition@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at Fly the Transition. And the website for Flying Midwest Media is flyingmidwest.com. Keep soaring. See you next time on Fly the Transition.